Same, yeah.
Right, yeah, we're broadcasting. Oh, here's Sally. Yeah, that's great. Right, they're in. Oh, well, that's good. I've got a good panel. So there we go. All right, so let's get going. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. We do this live. You can watch it on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel and Facebook page. We do this every Friday at around 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Got a great panel. I've got some great stories. I'm going to let the panel quickly introduce themselves and we'll be into the first story. So, Spencer, would you like to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Spence from WP Launchify or launchflows.com.
And I was being rude there. I should let the ladies introduce themselves first. So I apologise, ladies. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Heather Renzi, Digital Solutions Lead at The Difference.
And I've got my friend Sally. Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Sally Getch, WP fangirl and organizer of the East Bay WordPress meetup.
And I've got the Andrew Palmer. Would you like to introduce yourself, Andrew?
Yeah, it's Andrew Palmer, and I recently joined gridpane.com, which is exciting news. So that's who I'll be representing from here on in.
Oh, well, there we go.
There you go.
So let's go straight into our first story, if I can find it yet. The price of admission, WordPress users that hold creators accountable. So what did you think of this one, Spencer?
Well, what I think
it follows through from a previous story last week, doesn't it?
Yeah, from the WP user avatar where they had a really successful, simple, free plugin, and the developers decided to take an entirely new plugin that had a premium upsell and jam it inside of there like a turducken without telling anybody. But the real mistake was when the audience, the free users, responded that they were very displeased to wake up in the morning and find, people living in their living room that they didn't know before. The plugin author decided to go guns a-blazing in their face to argue why that's okay. And I think that's what got him into trouble. So I think that it's tough to know. Actually, I got to read this a second time. It's tough to know whether Justin's taking a stand here, but the debate seems to be about whether or not there is a sense of entitlement because you're putting some plugin out there. And the argument against that is that, well, you live and die by the sword of your customers. Well, the thing I talked about last time I would say here is true. These aren't customers in the repository. They are freeloaders, nice people, but freeloaders. And there is that YouTube video that I referred to, the hot and crazy one. Well, there's the free and crazy chart where the less people pay, the crazier they are. So if it had been a real premium plugin and you did this, I would think that the response might have been a little more tame. But because they were free people, they believe and think that the developer owes them everything under the sun, probably to make them breakfast too.
I can, with a lot of things you say, I can understand. I think there's a little element of truth in what you say. There is a minority that are got a very aggressive freeloader attitude. I think a lot of the other people are just naive. They have no experience. No, they absolutely know nothing, and they've it's like somebody who's bought some Premier plugins and then needs some critical functionality, and you give them a price for custom coding, and it just goes quiet on the Zoom call because they have no idea what custom coding costs, or they've got no previous experience. It's a bit like having a cheap Japanese car, and then you buy a Mercedes or a Porsche, and then you have it go into the garage, and instead of getting your $200 bill, you get $2,000 bill, and you have absolutely, your jaw just kind of drops on the floor. But that's what you get charged. What do you reckon, Andrew? Have I got a point, or am I just waffling on?
You're waffling. You're waffling. You're going on like a
Right.
dripping tap. It's like a Chinese torture.
Well, no, this is a lot like on Amazon, like how people like those Chinese reviewers like will get a whole bunch of reviews on one thing and then replace the item with something else. So like you'll see like a brand new item with reviews that are 5 years old
Right.
and like about a completely different thing.
A different product.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
right. I mean, the thing is that the point of the article is that, yes, there's a lot of people on Team Free Shit, but that is not what the objection was about. The objection was not, you're giving me something for free and I'm complaining because you will not, give in to every feature request, answer support instantaneously, or any of the things that, people are not paying for. The complaint is, hey, I installed one plugin to do one thing, and this guy over here who had a different, less successful plugin that he wanted to monetize bought it, replaced it overnight with no warning to anybody, and suddenly it was full of upsells. I mean, it's not like they installed the plugin and it said on it, and most of the free plugins that have premium versions do say on them, they have upsells even within the description. You can get our Pro plugin for these additional features. And that you're, installing something that's going to try to get you to pay for an additional thing. So, it is basically somebody's camping you wake up and somebody is camping in your living room. I think if they'd even, put out some kind of announcement saying, hey, we have new owners, we're doing this, and people could have a little warning to decide whether they wanted to stay or not. Because, you can say, oh, they're just freeloaders, except without the 100,000 free installs or whatever, a lot of people don't necessarily get to the version that they can sell, or the other product that they can sell, or the established trust. If you do a favor for a friend and you are, or you tell them you're doing them a favor and you instead stab them in the back, you can't expect that person to be happy about it, whether or not you paid them any money.
I think Sally's completely correct, and they're not. Yes, there are. To call people who use WP.org plugins or take plugins from repository freeloaders is kind of correct, but kind of rude, because it's used for and by developers and customers to test out plugin functionality. There's a lot of freemium plugins on there, for instance. Otherwise,
I mean it only in terms of their attitude, not in terms of like the code. I mean, give you an example. Somebody who takes free plugins, they're entitled to say, hey, this doesn't work. And they're entitled to say, hey, this isn't what I got into. What I'm saying is the range of response that this guy got himself into is specifically because it was a free plugin. In other words, he did something wrong.
I would be just as pissed if I woke up one morning and Gravity Forms did that without.
Absolutely. I'm saying, like, if you took a civilized paying $100, $200 a year plugin buyer against a free repository person, I'm saying those two people will have very different responses. And I would say on average, the buyer would be like, excuse me, this isn't what I paid for. Can you please correct it? The free person's like, hey man, what the hell are you doing here? Like, and then to go at the free person is like business suicide, because they have nothing to lose.
No, I got it. But the point is that he did wrong, right? Let's just all agree that he did wrong, because he could have pre-announced it. We're going to put in new features. We're going to add this to it. We're going to have a premium, whatever.
Yeah, but what's your response to this second article where they seem to be suggesting that the people, because it was free, they had no right to complain?
Not at all. They did. They had absolutely every right to complain.
Yes, and that's not what this particular article suggests. Yeah. This particular is actually defending the people who complained and getting specific about why they were upset.
Yeah, I know. I think they've got every right to complain, because they had something on there within their WordPress websites. I mean, who's now to stop anybody uploading something to WP.org and it's malware? It doesn't seem that there's any control there because yeah, I mean, it stopped me. It's making me double think about whether or not I want to buy a premium version straight off rather than just download something from WP.org, because there is obviously no policing going on. If a guy can change his plugin completely and then update it, then whoa, what's going on at WP.org?
So what do you reckon, Eva? I think this is the crux of it, isn't it? Is that it's the security issues in all this. It's rather concerning, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, imagine if you've installed this and then your site is dependent on like this one feature of a plugin, and then you log in and like that plugin has completely changed, and suddenly, like, I mean, in this case, it's not so different, but like, I mean, they could do anything, and like maybe your entire site like has like one type of, I mean, it could be. I'm just imagining in my head that like every word "the" is replaced with an emoji of bananas, like, and it could be like you could write a plugin for anything that just changes.
Yeah, I mean, it exposes a particular hole in the system. They review stuff when it's first submitted, but after it's up there, the reviews of updates and changes are, and pretty much somebody has to notice something and complain about it.
And they allow people to take over other plugins too. So like, I mean, so you could have, I mean, I've had a Guy Fawkes, like I've had more than one people attack my websites on Guy Fawkes Day. So like, I mean, it's been, I mean, I've been taken down for that. And I mean, it's easy enough to undo what they do, but still, like back in the day, it's like, oh, okay, Guy Fawkes Day, you're gonna get attacked. And, and I mean, but you could do that with a plugin. They wouldn't even have to like try and do a brute force attack or anything. They could just be like, oh, you have this plugin installed, boop.
Well, basically, it is what is hiding now on the 60,000 plus plugins. Who's hiding there? Say you get a bad actor, somebody completely pissed off with WordPress, right? You know, I've got 100 or 200,000 downloads in a plugin. Whacks a bit of code in there to turn your website into a Bitcoin mining machine. You know, there's nothing stopping anybody doing that, and that's where the issue is.
Andrew, talk to me after the show. You just give me an idea.
I'm already doing it.
I think the takeaway from all this is still the same thing. We all agree on the bad behavior of the author, but that's the consequence. You're in a very unusual marketplace where freemium is the norm and the reaction to it is odd. So here's the lesson. Don't go after people who complain that you've done something wrong when you clearly have, because it won't end well for you. And I think this particular developer is going to have a tough time using his real name in the future when he comes out with a product, because his trust is going to be eroded, and this will not go away from the history.
I kind of think he was playing a numbers game there. That, you know, I don't know how many downloads the avatar had. How many did it have?
It was a lot of downloads. And it was especially a lot more downloads than the Profile Press plugin, which had already existed separately.
Sure. So I think he was playing a numbers game. I mean, depending on how many.
Yeah, he was hoping he could cash in on all these.
I think he has probably cashed in, Sally. To be honest, I think that there's some people out there who've just gone, oh well, I've still got WP Avatar, but I've also got this, and then maybe I need it, you know, so I'll pay the $10 or the $20 or the $30. So I think it's a numbers game. It'd be interesting to get him on the show and just find out how much money he made out of this little exercise.
I don't think he's coming on any podcast anytime soon. You know, I don't think there's any chance. Right, before we go on to the other story, I want to talk about one of my major sponsors, that's Costas. If you're looking to get into podcasting yourself or for clients, we got a friend that's looking to get into podcasting, I think it's a great idea. You need somewhere to host your audio files and produce an RSS feed with a load of other tools that will help you get started in your journey into the area of podcasting. And that's what Costas provides. I moved to them about 3 months ago. I was using another provider. It was at about twice the price, a very clunky interface. I think one of the most impressive things, apart from their support and pricing, is just the lovely interface you get, really simplistic, but very easy to use. And there's a lot of the time the two things don't always go together. But it is a really easy interface to use, and they're just great people to work with. So I suggest that you go over to Castos and have a look at what they've got to offer and try them out. So on we go on to story 2. What I learnt by relearning HTML. What did you think of this one, Sally?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting because I'm not sure that what the author learned is what I learned from reading the article, but it is worth doing. I mean, first of all, one thing that you should learn from going over HTML, if you haven't recently, is wow, it's not 1994. You know, I was having my husband help me with something, and he's like, why doesn't blah 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 have, you know, I'm like, it does, hon. It's like we're not in the same thing that we were. So it seems like the author kind of came out of this with, oh, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff about HTML I didn't know, and using, you know, appropriate tags for things and so on. And there's some stuff that's confusing, and there's still a lot of stuff that you can't do with it. It seems like it's really designed mainly for something like Wikipedia, and we should just like JavaScript all the things. And I don't tend to agree with that opinion. I mean, it's true. You know, there's a limit to the things you can do with HTML, but it's also, there's things for which you should use HTML. There's things for which you should use CSS. There's things for which you should use JavaScript. There's things for which you should use other platforms. And one of the reasons that you want to learn those different parts of being a web developer is so that you're, you know, basically not trying to eat your soup with a fork because you didn't know anything about how to, you know, about the existence of spoons.
So what did you reckon, Andrew? What did you think of this? You're muted, Andrew.
Yes, I think it's a great idea to go back and relearn stuff. I do it all the time. It's like going back to read an old book, or, you know, especially if it's a factual book.
Well, when you get to your age, you have to relearn.
You know, you have to, it's because you forget. But yeah, in fact, it was my birthday on Wednesday, so there you go.
Oh, happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
So that means you have a birthday almost the same day as WordPress itself.
That's right. Yeah, isn't that a coincidence? Wow. Yeah, I think they're the day after, aren't they? 27th, wasn't it? Yeah.
And you're 18
Yeah,
as well.
I was 22. Sorry?
You're 18 as well.
Yeah, I wish. Yeah.
Maybe
how
the
many multiples?
fourth time around the lap or something.
I've never hidden my age. I was 61 on Wednesday.
That's nasty. That's worse than me.
I made it to 61. Amazing.
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is, getting older is an achievement. Being young has a lot of, you know, things one can enjoy about it. But, you know, getting older is an achievement. It means you have survived.
Exactly right. But anyway, and I've survived a few of these as well. But yeah, going back, learning stuff. I kind of tried to learn JavaScript about 4 years ago, or learn, you know, the fundamentals of it, because Matt Mullenweg went out and told us that we needed to learn JavaScript for React, and, you know, the way that React works, and JS and Vue.js and all that kind of stuff. And I'd learned it ages ago, and I went back into it, and now I can, when a developer shows me stuff, because we're developing stuff in React now, and I get it. I can kind of get it. Just like when I went back and relearned PHP, I kind of get it. So I can spot the errors rather than write the code. So or if you did that, maybe if you did this, or just you know, it's the wrong syntax, I can understand it. But I'm not a programmer anymore. But going back, relearning how to, for instance, I used to be a chef. So there are things in life, in cooking, that has completely changed the way you cook things or the way you may prepare them or whatever. And I think relearning is a great thing to do. So congratulations to this person for going back and relearning his craft. Really, I think it's a great idea.
So what do you reckon, Heather? What did you get from this particular article?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to stay updated. Like whenever, like one of the things that I always do when I'm on vacation, and I know this is silly, is I pick a programming language to relearn, and like that's my fun time on downtime. and,
No, I just think you're going on the wrong vacations, but
no. I mean, like, because like
Well, I mean, if you have any kind of vacation at all, you're ahead of me. So,
well, no, I mean, so like, I mean, I'll do like a tech-free week a year. But like when I'm just like sitting on a beach, like it's boring to me. Like to just sit on the beach, I'll be like, I'll go crazy.
yeah.
So like, I mean, I'll like read a book on Swift or something like that, and then like figure, because like as a CTO, I need to know like what is out there so I can understand the possibilities. And like I was so excited when like I could finally center divs on CSS. Like I'm like, yes, we can do it now.
yes, centering with Flexbox, that was such a big one.
Yeah, I mean, but like before that, I was like, I mean, I would just be telling my clients, no, we can't do that. No, we can't do that. And now I can be like, yeah, we can do that. So I mean, that's why it's important.
And I think it's really useful to learn a bit, especially when you're working with Gutenberg, because you could have gone in and centered your free images, couldn't you? You're losing me, Heather. You know, when you went in last time, you went into Gutenberg and you couldn't center your images. That's where you need to up your HTML skills. That went down like a bucket of sick, didn't it, listeners and viewers? Heather had absolutely no idea what the hell I was talking about. Spencer, what did you think about this article?
I mean, I like the premise of the article because even in the days where we have everything drag and drop, it's really empowering to know the big three, right? So HTML, CSS, and I'll call it JavaScript, but jQuery and JavaScript. If you understand the basics of those three, if you can even speak them slightly fluently, which is very easy to pick up, you may not need to code anything from scratch, but when you're using a page builder or using Gutenberg or using something else, you can easily use the console or the inspector tool to figure out why certain things are acting unexpectedly, which is a huge advantage for anybody. It's like understanding in a car when you lift up the hood that this is the carburetor, this is the fuel injector, this is the battery. It doesn't mean you're going to fix it, but it means you understand more about what's going on, especially when it's not working properly. I will say though that given that the first decade of being in WordPress, I taught people how to code from scratch with this. I wouldn't recommend anybody spend a great amount of time becoming fluent enough to go from scratch in it. That to me is a waste of energy, but speaking the language, hugely beneficial.
Oh, great. So on to story 3. I like this one. Looking to leave WordPress behind, you're not alone. This comes from the all knowledgeable about WordPress search engine land by a writer, Pamela Parker.
Peter's sister.
Yeah, exactly.
Spider-Man. Yeah, sorry.
There we go. So, Heather, what did you think of this one?
The one about leaving WordPress behind?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's that people are always going to want options about leaving WordPress. Like at some point, people grow up and want to go to someone else. I thought it was interesting to see what people are going to. I have never heard of Typo 3 before. And I think it's funny that there's still people that are using Joomla and Magento.
Explain yourself. I need you to explain yourself. Why is it funny about that people still use Joomla and Magento?
Well, because they're terrible. And
tell us how you really feel, Heather.
Yeah, no. like, and I spend a lot of time trying to get people off of Squarespace because it's just, yeah. But I mean, they're good. Like it seems like all of these things that are listed in the article are entry level stuff, except for like Joomla, Magento, and things like that. Those are the ones that people generally graduate up to, Drupal, all of that. But they're older school, and WordPress is just so much easier to use. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think I'm going to put it over to Spencer, but I think it's also linked to this headless movement around using APIs, and especially the corporate crowd that are into React or one of the JavaScript front-end libraries. They're really pushing.
Well, face it, a lot of the corporate crowd is into things like, Adobe Experience Manager, which it costs millions of dollars a year and is apparently a complete nightmare to use. And that universe has always wanted something that's a little more like a digital asset management tool, a thing that's truly a central place to manage your content and put it in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, Spencer, do you think I think I might be right here, but you can put me wrong. It's just that I think you have this group that work for a large company and they're in the latest JavaScript library, and then you got the freelance independent contractor that's really in a kind of different world. Is anything about that's correct?
I don't think that's the point of this. I don't know what the point is, but so that I avoid this sounding like an ad hominem attack against the author, let's pretend we don't know who the author is. Okay. The facts of this article don't align with the premise of the title at all. If you actually look at the chart, WordPress is growing and has a 64% market share. The next tool has 8% at best. No, sorry, down to 5.4%. So, like, the premise of the article is people are flocking to leave when the opposite is true. And it has nothing to do with headless or footless or shoeless or anything. It just has to do with the article is just stating a premise that is wrong.
I had been hoping for something more interesting when I saw the article, because there are specific use cases, which the author does mention, where you want a different type of content management system. And that is mostly at the corporate end of things, which of course is a teensy percentage of total websites. But yeah, I mean, it's not as if the statistics show a mass migration away from WordPress.
There's not.
The opposite.
The opposite.
I've got to be honest. That's why I did mention the office.
Because
I do think it was one of the worst shitty articles that I've read.
It's like an article that says 64% of people are drinking coffee over other beverages, and people are flocking to leave coffee. And then you see a chart where the line is like in space and everything else is on the ground. You're like, what's wrong with the authher here? I mean, what are they talking about?
Well, one thing I will say, if I can get a word in, is that we
You're very great. Have you not had a good week this week, Andrew?
Oh, lovely. I've just finished a round of golf.
All right, there we go.
My golf club has just closed, though. My golf club has been bought by some gazillionaires, and they're closing.
Well,
Trump? It's been bought by Trump, is it?
No. It's been bought by some billionaires called the Ambanis, who own the Reliance Group.
Oh, they're worse than Trump, aren't they?
$26.5 billion in the bank. So, the 80 million that they contributed towards Stoke Park's sale was a drop in the ocean. So they're closing it on the 18th of October for 2 years, and everybody's having like palpitations. So I joined another club.
That's why you're not happy, isn't it?
I'm happy. No, I'm happy. I don't care as long as I can play golf somewhere. But no, what I'm saying is that the article is clickbait, right? Obviously, the article title is clickbait.
The headline is total clickbait.
Yeah, it's total clickbait. But the simple fact of the matter is, and I know this because I coach people to how to build websites and what freelancers and how to make their business more profitable with recurring income. And I always say to these guys, if they're having trouble with WooCommerce, because a lot of people do, and I know that you guys love it and whatever, but if it's a simple
That
e-commerce,
doesn't mean it's never a pain in the ass.
exactly. So for simple e-commerce, we are transferring 1 out of 3 WooCommerce customers. We over the last 2 years, so a third of all customers that ask for WooCommerce,
you're moving them to Wix.
we persuade them to go to Shopify.
Oh,
With fantastic success, phenomenal success.
Even
honestly.
worse, listeners and viewers. I don't know what to say to you, Andrew. Can you be forgiven? I don't know. There we go.
Phenomenal success. It's all about the customers. You got to care about the customer. I don't care about the CMS.
Right. Again,
I
it
care
goes
about the
back
customer.
to the tool that they need. There was some article I read recently that was something along the line of like, even better than solving people's problems is eliminating them, and that somebody may think they need X, Y, Z or some custom thing, and actually if you use some of the existing things, they'll work. Or it's like people are imagining a need for something when they haven't determined that they truly have a need for that. And so that's absolutely true, that there are a lot of cases where WordPress is not the best tool. But yeah, this is not like, there's very little substance to the article, and indeed the statistics run opposite to what the headline claims, and the rest of what it says about certain corporate and other needs is like, this is not news. Everybody knows it. Like, especially WordPress users know it, because it's like your family. Nobody knows your flaws better than the people closest to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, there we go. Or my panel about me.
Well, we're gonna
there we go. Let's go for our break, and then Grumpy Andrew can comment some more. We'll be back. We'll be back in a few moments.
Oh dear,
As he might take your curmudgeon title away from you.
Yes. We're coming back. We've had a good session, and shock horror, Andrew's lost his golfing club to some speculator developer. Jesus, there we go. I think I'll be pissed off as well. So on to channel, on to story 4. Joomla blocks Flock, FLOC by default. Drupal moves. Everybody moves against this. Blah blah blah. What do you reckon, Sally?
It's a pity John isn't here to discuss this.
But he was, but he had to drop it out at the last minute. He had
yes. Well, I mean, I think we discussed this. We discussed Flock some number of weeks ago on the show.
Can you quickly explain what Flock is?
No. Because I don't flip and understand it, but it's basically...
I can. I'm going to read it, though. I can read it. So Flock is part of the Privacy Sandbox initiative, a family of privacy-enhancing technologies developed by Google, aiming to move the ad-serving process to the browser. This way, advertisers can target groups of people with similar interests without accessing any...
Oh, that made it so clear.
It's basically Google saying, oh, so you won't let us track you the way we used to track you. This is our new way to track you.
Yeah.
And there was a suggestion in the WordPress community about, did we want to simply block this by default in WordPress? I think the conclusion was pretty much, look, we may dislike this, but it's not really our decision as the maker of a CMS, because there are people who use this, and advertising is a large part of how they make their income. And I mean, there are lots of us on the side of don't want to see any damn ads, and there are a lot of other people on the ads on my website are where my money comes from side, or people whose clients are in that position. So I think it's interesting that Joomla has decided to do this, and Drupal is considering it, though I know that Dries said, if we do it, there has to be some way to turn it off. So it is a fairly clear message that people are not so keen on this move from Google.
No, it's interesting, really. So, however, nothing, it's strange for me to say this on a show mostly about an open source project, but nothing is free. So, if you want all this functionality, you know, I suppose you've got to buy into surveillance capitalism, haven't you? Really, unless you're going to pay for all this stuff, aren't you?
Well, I mean, we are paying for it no matter what. And
Yeah.
and that is the thing. I mean, that's what you're just saying. Nothing is free. But I mean, this also gives you an easier way to opt out. And just like what Apple just did with the iPhone, like you were always opted in by default. And now like with Flock, that's the thing. Like you're being allowed to opt out by default. And it actually makes me a little bit sad that people aren't allowing this to happen, because before, I mean, the way that websites currently work, everyone's opting by default. So
Yeah. So what do you reckon, Spencer?
First of all, I'm surprised that Drupal and Joomla still exist. I just saw a graph that showed that they had less than 5% of market share. And how is anybody still wasting any time on it? Now, I do remember when WordPress first came out, the Joomla was particularly sexy and exciting. But then one realized that you had to recompile the entire site every time you made a change to a blog post. And that took all the wind out of that sail. But Drupal was the favorite of all my heavyweight pals in Silicon Valley.
Oh, I was into Expression. Bloody
Silicon, but like they all love that because they can do their modules.
Silicon Valley is Los Angeles.
I'm doing it facetiously, right? Exactly.
He does it deliberately.
I do it on purpose. I'm doing like a George Bush thing. But in any event, the developers from the Google and the Apple crowd loved Drupal because it got them a free ride into a heavy payday when they would build these custom modules, and then nobody could ever do anything with their stuff. So it was like the people with those tape-based IBM computers in the old days, still writing on a green screen. But other than that, the Flock thing is a red herring, and we've talked about it before. I don't think it will hold water on WordPress or otherwise because it is just, as Heather indicated, so upside down in terms of like where the mindset of the public is today, that I think eventually, just like other things, it will get into the common conversation that like, really? You're putting me in a group of people and tracking everything I do because of that? I mean, that's pretty heavy-handed.
Listen, we have people that are sending people $12,000, $15,000 in a FedEx box because scammers are ringing them from India, selling them their Amazon.
There's people who are
using Flock
who fall for calls that claim to be from the IRS and want you to pay them an iTunes card.
So we are this is what we get confused about in our little community, in our little bubble that we're in. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Let me just say that again. Nobody cares except us about this. Nobody cares about this except people that are against Google or Facebook for their advertising, for making so much money out of us poor people that they're monitoring.
Hold on. I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry about this. I disagree, being that you're on the other side of the ocean. Explain to me how you rationalize that the politicians will not care, because on your side of the ocean, you have to suffer with GDPR, and you have to suffer with the cookie checkbox, and you have to suffer with all these other bullshit things that, believe it or not, here in America, the land of the free and the e-commerce marketing, we don't even have to do. I mean, just GDPR alone was rammed down the EU and I think Great Britain's throat in a way that now every website looks like some kind of lawyer's dream of like warning signs. That's how it's going to come down. Not because Tom, Dick, and Harry and Susie care about it, but because some politician is going to make this their platform for getting reelected and go, look what the evil ones are doing to you.
No, I get that, Spence, but you're starting to get, otherwise companies like Termageddon wouldn't exist. There's many a privacy policy and whatever people out there, but they are monitoring every one of your American states that are bringing in new cookie policies, new GDPR type policies and everything. What people don't realize from a UK perspective, because it's all, WordPress and everything is pretty much all America. It's all about America, is that we had GDPR. We just called it a different thing. We built the GDPR, us and Germany together, put together GDPR. Germany had always a really serious GDPR policy before it was called GDPR, and even now it's even more serious. And I like it because the web developer or the website owner has to be identifiable within your privacy policy, actually as either an entity or an individual. Now that gets rid of the charlatans. I don't actually disagree with that.
I actually think that's an excellent idea.
So do I. So do I. There are so many websites out there that you have no idea who owns them.
As no objection to GDPR in principle. It's a
who owns it.
Actually,
the way it's done.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Sally, but I think Andrew's put up a good point there, because I don't know.
Andrew's making a very good point.
I don't know. I don't know if you're the same panel, but when I'm looking at a new plugin or a new service, and I go to the website, and I can't find anything about who's behind it, who's developed it, nothing. I tend to walk away because
I want to know
I want to know who I'm doing
this is different in one big way, though. Here's why it's different. In GDPR, terms of service, even cookie law, it's the site owner that takes responsibility. And your point is actually true. I feel the same way. If a site doesn't look like Ling's Cars, I feel much better. But this is not giving control to the owner to collect the data and dispose of the data or to present it in a certain way. This is giving it exclusively to Google privately. That's the big difference. And that's where I think that the politicians will grab a hold of it, because we talked last week about Apple bending over and making love to China when they blocked the FBI and the CIA here in America. Everybody agrees that can't be good for consumers in China. If Google does flock and they collect the data privately about us, it'd be nice if we all could say, oh, we have a flock checkbox. But that's not what's happening here. It's a Google gets the data for Google.
Let's make all WordPress. Let's build a plugin that says, disable flock. Brilliant. That's another one. I'll talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's what'll happen. I mean, that's that free market works that way, right? I mean, exactly. It's just like with the. I didn't talk about it in this show, but like I dropped it in last week that our good friends at Yoast apparently decided to put in a brand new dynamic footer. If you heard me over on Nathan's show, that shows up if you have Elementor. So they thought it was a brilliant idea to dynamically generate a site-wide admin footer to upsell one of their accessories. And that's the kind of behavior that we all see and say, no, that isn't the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to hijack my entire dashboard. In the same way, GDPR, terms of service, things that people have to do to comply with the law, at least they give the site owner the option to do it or maybe face the consequences. Far different than it being imposed on you automatically or being done secretively by a third party who doesn't share the data with you. And I think that's a big, distinction here. So
it's not like Google was not collecting all this information before.
They're doing it in a more anonymized way.
Right. So this is sort of like, oh, you mean you didn't like us collecting every single one of your personal details and selling them for profit?
Isn't it ironic that Google Analytics doesn't let you do that for yourself? Like, do no evil in Google Analytics means you can't collect any data about who visits your own website, but Google knows everything about everyone.
It's such a delete.
It's an effort to get around these new laws protecting people's privacy.
I need to move on, but Spencer made a delicious point there. So on we go. On to my next sponsor, Conversio.
Conversio. I'm going to make you say it properly.
Conversio.
Conversio. Right. Thank you.
Well done. God.
Thank you. Oh my God, he's great. He really's got it in for me, listeners.
If you're not a sponsor, give me 50 quid now.
Right. If people are going to the wrong website, that's not very good for your sponsor.
No, it's true, but they do choose rather difficult names, don't they? But you are correct. Basically, they're a WordPress hosting provider, but it's real performance, listeners and viewers. If you've got a client or you've got a website that really is crucial and you're looking for real performance and you're not happy with your present hosting provider, I can recommend to pronounce it Conversio. Right, and yeah, they do a fantastic job. The owner of the business showed me the back end, and they've got some real fantastic technology, and they've just got also a really great reputation. The other thing is, if you go to the show notes, there will be a banner, and if you click that banner, you'll be taken to their website, and they're offering to all the WP-Tonic tribe a great special offer of 30%, and that's the lifetime of the plan that you choose for yourself or for your clients. It's an exclusive offer for WP-Tonic, and it's a fantastic offer. I highly recommend that you should take it up. On to the next story. Boeing company tests Tesla tunnel system in Las Vegas. Have you tried it, Heather? What do you think of this one, Heather?
I haven't tried it yet. I've seen it.
Oh, you haven't been in the tunnel, Heather?
No. But I've been down there. I've seen the tunnel, and I actually have a Tesla on order. So I'm excited for that to be delivered. They're all delayed right now. The Model S's and X's are delayed a bit. But on June 3rd, they're having Tesla Day. So they're delivering a lot of them. Hopefully mine will be in the batch right after that. Anyway, so this tunnel in Vegas is underground. It's connecting a lot of the hotels to the convention center and the airport. So that should save a lot of traffic.
So for the listeners and viewers that don't know anything about this, can you give us a brief outline? What is the tunnel?
Yeah, so I mean, it's an underground disco light colored tunnel that Teslas are running autonomously. I mean, they will be running autonomously. Right now they're in test mode, so they have a driver going in there, but it's 2 one-way tunnels that there is a loop underneath Las Vegas that are connecting the airport to the convention center to the major hotels like the Wynn, Resorts World, Circus, like everything that would generally go to the convention center underground, so that people won't need to walk or congest traffic during conventions, because we have, like, whenever there's a major convention like CES here or World of Concrete or any
which
of the
is like all the time.
Yeah, I mean, and World of Concrete is actually next month, and so that's like the big test for this, like the first one. We have like 150,000 people that come into the city overnight, and it's, I mean, just like Memorial Day weekend right now, we have 150,000 people that just came into the city overnight, and it can get congested right on the strip area around the convention center. Like there's a big block of hotels there. So this can handle up to 4,000 people an hour within the cars. Like each car can take up to 4 passengers, and yeah. And it just each one, and people are like, well, what happens if a car breaks down in the tunnel? Well, there's little break-offs for them to go, but it's little 1-car tunnels each going in.
So it's not cool. So these cars, I just want to clarify, it's not that you drive your own car.
No.
You go in and then you go into this car that they provide,
and it drives you.
All right.
In Las Vegas,
so
the car drives you.
Yes. Instead of, calling a taxi, you or getting on a bus, you get on one of these little cars and go through the tunnel, which it probably, I mean, it sounds like it could be really useful, because I don't, driving in Las Vegas during a convention is not anybody's idea of a good time. I do think, like, you have to have a quirky sense of humor or be utterly oblivious to name something the Boring Company. I mean, at least Jonathan can probably pronounce that.
Yeah, I can pronounce that.
And I think any company that's coming up with a name should give it the Jonathan test, because if Jonathan can't pronounce your name, there's probably a whole bunch of other people who also can't, and that's going to be bad for your brand identity. apparently the original conception of this was way more space age. It seems like this could work. Although again, it's kind of like, okay, so now we're gonna, have a lot of money spent on, setting up the technology, and a lot of people who are Uber drivers or taxi drivers or something not getting work in that situation. I think there's so many people who come to Las Vegas, the taxi drivers are not going to be out of a job, but you wonder a little about that aspect of these things.
Isn't it just what we've had for over 150 years?
Like a tube, you mean?
Like
yes,
tube, right? So
there is a tiny little sort of tram thingy in Las Vegas. Yeah, well, Americans used to have an impressive system of railroads, a lot of local rail, a lot of ways to get around, and there was a huge push to tear all that stuff up and get rid of it when the freeways were built. It was political and financially motivated.
So before I move it over to Spencer or Andrew, Heather, is this linked at all to the other thing that they were talking about, which is this putting Teslas on in a vacuum and then shooting?
That's the Hyperloop, and that's not Teslas. So a Hyperloop is those are pods that are like inside of a vacuum tube kind of thing. Like it's
they've been testing that near Las Vegas, haven't they?
That's also in Vegas, and that's owned by Richard Branson.
Oh, is it?
Oh,
yeah,
51% owned by he only ever owns 51% of anything.
Correct. Yes,
and does very well by it.
Yeah, and I've run into him a couple times, like for meetings on the Hyperloop in town. Like he's very interesting.
Keep your purse very close to you, Heather, if you're near him. That's all I've got to say. So, what do you reckon about this, Spencer? What do you reckon about this one?
I mean, I think it's cool because it's really just taking advantage of what they've already put in place to kind of use it for, I think, more publicity and marketing. I mean, it's obviously fairly impractical to have people in large volumes get into 4-passenger cars on a tiny tunnel with no escape hatch, but to get the idea stimulating people's minds and marketing. Well, I mean, because they said it only is big enough to really fit maybe an S. I don't know if an X will fit in there, and a van or a special vehicle will be better. But
the X's are in there.
Yeah, like, they're using like the test tunnel as a great way to get publicity, which Elon Musk is terrific at, even though he's not trying to be a marketer. He really knows what he's doing because this gets a lot of attention and gets people thinking like, oh, look at that. I want to see that tunnel thing. I can go across Las Vegas in 4 seconds on instead of, waiting on I was in Vegas before the pandemic happened, and I love that all the sidewalks are elevated, and I love that they've got the transport, but now that it stops in a couple extra places, it's almost as slow as being in traffic used to be. And I love walking, but when it's 180 degrees with even the low humidity, you got to stay inside the casinos. You can't really honestly walk anywhere outside.
That's what the casinos want, hon.
Yeah. So it's a clever way to use what's already there. And it's also, I mean, there's another technology we're not talking about, but I see as a great likely future. The electric-based quadricopters, basically the electric, hovering vehicles that are scaled up from the toys and the drones. There are about 10 companies now in late stage of actual testing, especially the Chinese company as well, that you will see, I guarantee you, in a couple of years, just fleets of these things going between point A and point B autonomously. It's the same concept, except not in a tunnel, but that is potentially a way to solve a lot of these normal traffic problems of, let's call it honestly, morons in cars. Regular street traffic is horrible.
All right, then I'm going to let the panel decide this. Are we going to move on to story 6, or should I ditch it and go into Spencer's webinar? And should we discuss 6, or shall we move on?
It's almost 9:30, and if we start talking about it,
we won't get out.
Get wound up.
Yeah, we won't. So
and I think it's kind of out of our bailiwick.
Well, the reason why I think it's the biggest story of the year, but I think we have to find another time to discuss it. And it is around technology in some ways.
Nobody knows the topic we're talking about.
No,
we're not going to even mention it. There's no point in even mentioning it.
Yes.
If I mention it, we end up talking.
Right. Let's hear about Spencer's webinar.
Right. Yeah, right. So we're doing a webinar on the 11th of June. That's Friday, the 11th of June at 10:30 a.m. It's a series of free webinars that I've been doing with Spencer, and it's all been around marketing automation and using the power of WordPress to do that. I'm going to throw it over to Spencer, and he can give us more info about the webinars and what we're going to be discussing on the 11th. Over to you, Spencer.
Yeah, I'll be in Las Vegas at the tunnel, broadcasting back and forth, and seeing if I can take use of that.
Yeah, you might have a little trouble broadcasting from the Tesla in the tunnel. Your Wi-Fi is probably going to be crappy.
I'm sure the Teslas relay the Wi-Fi, right? I'm sure they have figured that out. That's how you're going to get rescued from the tunnel. If one of those Teslas breaks down in the middle, it's going to be stuck like a cork in a straw. You know, they're going to have.
Why is this different from any other tunnel anybody drives through? I mean,
we've
got millions of people a day going through the.
They all have escape lanes and rescue portals and stuff. At least when you drive under the bay, that's what they tell me. That's what at least made me feel comfortable going under the bay in the tunnel.
Hey, Andrew, what's
doing a webinar at all?
Andrew, what's the name of that tunnel in Europe? Where's
the tunnel?
That tunnel.
What in Switzerland?
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
Basil.
That one.
Basil.
I've driven through that. That was worrying.
I have a problem in the tunnel where the trucks would have like petrol in their things and get stuck and blow up. And anyway, all right. So the webinar is
through
I took a train through the tunnel.
It's the Katzenberg Tunnel, and it takes you through. I drove to Italy through it. So I drove from the south, from North France, all the way into Italy through that tunnel.
It's worrying, though. Back over to Spencer. Go on, Spencer.
I would love to go to Europe this summer, but it's just not going to be normal enough to go. I don't think. So what we're going to do? What was the date again in June?
Belgian Tunnel. Belgian Tunnel, not Katzenberg.
It's the 11th of June, Spencer.
11th. We're going to have the third part of this 3-part series. The other 2 parts were April and May. And we've already shown how to identify your stack of plugins for a modern membership site with marketing automation, how to configure it. And this time we're going to talk about how to use it with some of the latest strategies that involve not necessarily sending people who give you an email 65 follow-up drip nurturing emails, but instead using your website and its ability to track people, believe it or not, without Flock and with their permission, so that you can adjust their experience to give them immediate satisfaction, lower their impatience with having to find stuff, and overall giving a better experience, which is good for both of you. And if you're interested how that works, this is worth coming, because live you can ask questions. It's very short, because John and I are very old and have very low attention spans. And when it's done, it'll be there for you to use as a review and whatnot. You do want to give an email, so I won't spam you, but I will send you the actual link to the live event or to the recording, which could be convenient if you want to show.
That's great. Thank you, Spencer. So let's go on to recommendations. Mine is a platform called Netify. I gave it a quick look over. It enables you, if you're looking at WordPress or any kind of development environment, to get it up and running, and offers a number of tools for testing it. And it looked pretty funky. I'm only provisionally looked at it. I'm going to look at it a bit more.
I think they sponsor the Shop Talk show.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I've heard about them quite a bit.
Yeah, it looked pretty good actually, and especially if you're in a team and you're looking to have a modern development environment. It looked pretty nifty. So Heather, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, so I've got an upcoming webinar on hybrid workshops. So like any of you that do workshops or are trying to go back into figuring out how to run events. Like I just got off the back of running 3 weeks worth of events in a hybrid style with my team. And so I'm doing an informational webinar on how to run a hybrid event. And that's on June 18th. So anyone that is an organizer, event organizer, workshop facilitator, anything like that, that's interested in learning about that, we will have the link for you.
Yeah, make sure the link's in Slack panel, and then I'll make sure they're in the show notes. So, Sally, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
I do. I have not had a chance to try this, but I looked at it, and I think it could be really useful for a number of cases where my preferred events plugin is kind of overkill. This is the Gravity Forms calendar from Gravity View. You do not have to have Gravity View to use it, although Gravity View is pretty awesome if you want people to be able to visualize your forms. So basically, this takes the form entry information and displays it as a calendar, like pretty basic views. And it seems like a relatively straightforward way of doing community stuff, or possibly because they also have this really nice make this really nice import entries tool for Gravity Forms, so you can import anything from a CSV into your forms. So I'm gonna look into that further, and I have put the link into the chat here and into the Slack.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Spencer, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yes, filed under the category of right tool for the right job is Stripe just announced the tool called Payment Links. Create a link, sell anywhere. Now, as a person who is extensively embedded in using WooCommerce, I find this fascinating because there's probably going to be more from me in this subject area of when and where this would be the right tool for the right job. It's the perfect kind of tool if you just want to have immediately a reliable way to set up one-time or subscription payments, track the customers, do lots of stuff. And it can connect to other stuff, but you have to do it via webhooks or through a third-party connectivity tool like Integromat or Zapier. But I compare it to whether you need or want to set up a WooCommerce site, because there's a ton of reasons you might want one or the other, and they're really compelling. I mean, I will say this is something that's long overdue. Stripe has had this amazing gateway for so long, but they've been really, really careful, and I like that, to release, their own tools. This is a tool that is like Gumroad, but built into Stripe. So you can immediately do a lot of stuff, but you need to know whether and when to use that. So we're going to be talking about that at WP Launchify for businesses who haven't thought through this in their marketing automation. So it's a really cool thing, and it's free if you've otherwise used Stripe.
Oh, right. I'll have a look at that.
Brilliant. It's a great idea.
Yeah. Andrew, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Cloudconvert.com. For Convert, I've been doing a lot of voiceovers lately because I've got a great voice, evidently. But so I'm doing.
Well, at least you could pronounce the sponsors.
I can pronounce Convisio and Castos and Jonathan Denwood.
Yeah, there you go.
But the point is that I use this every single day and love it, and it's free. I'm one of those horrible people that use free tools every day. I love it. Cloud.
I don't know how you can live with yourself.
I didn't catch the name or the link. Sorry.
It's in Slack, but it's cloudconvert.com.
And what does it do again, Andrew?
It just converts audio files. So any kind of different audio file, WAVs, AIFs, whatever, MP3s, does them in the reverse, does whatever, and it's just really useful.
Yeah.
So I'm just intrigued. What are you doing for GridPan? Are you their public face now, or there?
Well, I'm because I'm in Europe, and they kind of didn't have any representation in Europe, and also I'm a GridPan user, and I've been an advocate for about a year. So Patrick and the team there just felt it was right that I joined them properly. So, I work for GridPane now. I still have my own interests and my other business and everything, but GridPane is I love it. It's a great management system. There's other systems out there, obviously, as we know. But I love it for managing WordPress. I've got 500 websites under management. So GridPane helps me.
What is it? ClickPan?
GridPane.com.
Oh, GridPane.
Yeah.
GridPane. Okay.
Gridpane.com. They're great people as well. They're really helpful, the support. So I'm going to be helping in an awful lot of areas, from community through to support, through to representation, etc., etc.
And if you want to know more about GridPane, they've been on the show about 4 months ago. Just do a search on the WP-Tonic website and you will find that great interview. I'm going to let the panel. Panel, Spencer, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
Come to launchflows.com and use the coupon code WP-Tonic Rocks and get 25% off your lifetime bundle, specially priced based on the advice of Andrew Palmer.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
well done.
There we go. Yeah, Andrew, if you got anything you want to, what's the best way to find out?
Now
more about
you'll find me mostly in a WordPress group called Self-Managed WordPress by GridPane. So you look in that in Facebook, but you can get me at Arnie Palmer on Twitter, and just Google me. You'll find me.
Yeah, Sally, what's the best way for people to find out more about you?
I am at Sally Getch on Twitter and Instagram, and basically, if you can spell my name, you will be able to find me. If you can't spell my name, look for WP Fangirl, because you will probably find me with that also.
Good go. And Heather, what's the best way for people to find out more about you and what you're up to?
I am Heatheriel everywhere on the internet, and if you look for Heather Wild, you will find me online.
And thank you, panel. I think it's been a great show. I've taken a load of abuse, but that's what I'm here for. And I'll see you soon, listeners and viewers. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.